concern me.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Well, thank you very much for joining us for this Donnybrook on the longest day of the year. Or maybe it'll just seem that way. We'll find out. Let's meet the panelists before we discuss the big topics. She's Wendy Weiss from KTRS. Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com. And from St. Louis Magazine, we'll talk about this, Sarah Fenske, alongside Mr. Alvin Reed from your St. Louis American. Well, congratulations. We like to say that good things happen to Donnybrook panelists, Sarah Fenske. And since we last saw you, you've landed steady employment.
Yes, it's very nice to be employed again. I start next week, so I bear no responsibility for what St. Louis Magazine is currently doing. However, that will change very soon. It's kind of an exciting opportunity. Ryan Kroll, who was the star reporter over at the Riverfront Times, he and I are going together to St. Louis Magazine, and what we're going to do is try to build up their news coverage. And so we're going to have a daily newsletter. We want to make this like one-stop shopping for people who care about local news in St. Louis, that this is going to show up right in your inbox. We're also going to have a podcast. Not exactly sure just yet what we're doing with that, but if you like to hear people wax on, which clearly Donnybrook viewers are fans of that, you know, we can give that to you in podcast form about local news. We're going to do that a couple times a week too.
How do we subscribe?
So you can find that at stlmag.com. There's a story about this major news expansion, and there's a link at the bottom. Just,
perfect.
Yes.
Alvin, you were against that hire. Explain why.
No. Yeah. You know, I used to write a column for him before I went back to full-time work. Yeah. Eliminated my position to create her. Yeah. Mine was 12 years ago.
But you are a sports columnist at the St. Louis American. I was wondering what your opinion was. Now that Kansas is offering star bonds, or at least in the process of offering the sales tax and revenue bonds to the Kansas City Chiefs so that they can build a new stadium in Kansas and keep the sales tax to defray the construction costs. Obviously, Missouri's going to have some sort of counter proposal. Is the question now, how much?
I think so, and I'm very familiar with that part of the world. And there are some sites that you could build the new stadium in that Overland Park area, and just along. I don't think they'll build it where there's a NASCAR track and a casino where there's, you know, you can make a legal sports wager up in Kansas too. But I'm not surprised, and I think they will even throw more into the kitty to try to attract the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are moving. I really don't, and I do think that Missouri will take action to try to at least convince the Chiefs that the better deal is here.
Well, I hope we don't take action. I don't think we should get in a bidding war with Kansas for the Kansas City Chiefs, and if we give money, if the legislature gives money to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cardinals are going to want in on it, the Blues are going to want in on it, the soccer. I mean, I think giving money to these sports teams is an idea that's come and gone.
But now this is something they don't have. I mean, the stadium is in Kansas City, or at least in Jackson County, and so it's something they don't have. So it's not like we have you, now we're investing more money in you and you're already here to improve your facility. This would be something that Kansas doesn't have.
Yeah, but this is like, you know, regions where we're fighting, like city against city, county against county, state against state. Like, nobody wins when that happens other than these already wealthy sports teams owners. If you talk to economists about this, they're basically universal. This doesn't pencil out. It never pencils out. And I love that voters are starting to get wise to it.
And I'm sorry, and I do think that the Jackson County vote was, it was so clear how opposed people were to it. There will be political, you know what to pay, I think, if they go ahead with this. I really do. I agree with Sarah.
I just think this, go ahead, Charlie.
I just think after the Kansas City Chiefs owner voted to send our Rams to Los Angeles, we shouldn't give a penny, at least of Greater St. Louis money, to the Kansas City Chiefs.
And I love the way Clark Hunt, when he's interviewed and he's kind of batting his eyelashes about how, well, we'll wait. It's very early in the negotiations. It's like it's such a mercenary proposition anymore.
But the Chiefs, they're putting Missouri on the map. You got Taylor Swift. You have the Kelsey connection. They're America's team.
I don't even think they're putting Missouri on the map. All my out-of-town friends think that Kansas City is in Kansas. This is not helping
Well,
the
that
state.
reflects the friends you hang out with.
Probably.
I don't say. I just come on now. You got to.
Okay.
But you think we should pony up a little money?
I do. Yes, I do. Because at least, okay, this is what they're willing to offer. Okay, that's Kansas. All right. If for some reason the Chiefs said we were seriously considering moving, and really I found out that they were seriously considering moving, then I would take some action. I wouldn't just sit idly by.
And I know what you mean, because Kansas City has made football fun again for a lot of us in St. Louis. We fly the Chiefs flag and all of that. But I do think in terms of Jackson County, there would be major fallout.
Bill McClellan, let me ask you about another out-of-state issue, but it affects a prominent St. Louis family, Art and Amelia Bond. They live in Clayton. They have a home in Camden, Maine, and they happen to have property right behind the heiress of L.L. Bean. Well, they've admitted that they took some pesticide from St. Louis and put it on their neighbors' trees. It gives the Bonds a better view of the lake. The problem is you're not supposed to use this pesticide, especially near water or parks, and apparently now it's gone into a nearby park, and it's on the beach there in Maine. People are furious. The Boston Globe has written about it today. I know Sarah wrote it about it some time ago. Some people think the Bonds should actually go to jail for this. What do you think?
Oh, I think jail's a really nice idea for the Bonds. An interesting sidelight to this is I remember Carl Stulzer's blog about the landfills and everything mentioned that when there was a settlement with the Republican service for like $15 million when Josh Hawley was Attorney General, Hawley took that money and gave it to the Community Foundation run by
Amelia.
By Amelia, and of course her husband is Kit Bond's nephew, and the thinking was that, well, Hawley wanted to be the senator, and he already had charmed Danforth, so he was, giving a break to another prominent Republican family. But it's just odd that this Community Foundation, which had no experience in environmental disaster sort of stuff, that the head of that goes to Maine and creates an environmental disaster. I just think it's entitled people, and boy.
Environmental disaster might be an exaggeration. It's not. It's not like Westlake or the contamination here in St. Louis.
But for the people in that area, killing trees and it getting down into the beach, it's just a terrible thing that these people have done, and I think they ought to pay.
I agree, and I think we were all reading this story thinking, this is God's way of telling you have too much money when you're using a pesticide on trees that are black. They have enough money to buy another house with a better view. I just can't imagine the thought process. Let's go out into the woods and kill these trees.
And Sarah, I want to get you, because I know you had this story long ago, but Amelia has said she thought that the trees were dying.
She also tried to negotiate with the people that...
Well, she did. She offered to pay half of the cost of taking them down, but they have cooperated. Everyone agrees that they have cooperated with authorities. It's their first offense. And frankly, as Bryce Gray of the Post-Dispatch has pointed out, a lot of this is used all the time, and it floats all over Missouri, killing trees and farmland. I think the only reason the story is so popular right now is because they're wealthy, and people don't like the wealthy.
Well, they're wealthy people behaving the way that we don't want wealthy people to behave. They're not looking after the common good. You have this now like leached into the shoreline. I can see why people are mad about it. I really can.
I agree.
And it's like to bring this in from out of state. Here's a state that takes its environmental regulations seriously, and so they're like, yeah, we're just going to do it Missouri style. We're just going to dump this pesticide here anyway. It kind of makes all of us look bad.
It does.
Yeah, and if we get caught, we'll just take some of our inherited money and pay off.
It just and it's trees. Once again, it's trees. Last week
There's
we
a
talked about
Kirkwood.
trees. It's like, what is up with the, leaving the trees? And just a quick, kind of not, in my Father's Day card from my mother, she had actually clipped that article and put a little, note on it that said, "What's up with this?" And I feel like that's how people react. Like, you gotta be kidding me.
And you know what else?
Bill frames makes my point because he describes Art as having inherited money. Art's an architect. He works for a living. He's not a trust fund baby. Now he might have some money.
He could be both.
He's Kit Bond's nephew, and Kit Bond comes from a lot of money in Mexico, Missouri, and Kit Bond was a smart guy, University of Virginia Law School, but these people,
I've got a rich
have a lot of
uncle.
money.
I have a rich uncle, Richard Brennan, who died, may he rest in peace. And if you go to my high school, you'll see his name next to the stadium. It's not named after him, but it's close to it. And I don't have any of that money, so I don't know about Art Bond and his
Maine
finances.
had its first excessive heat warning this week, so I could see where if you're destroying trees and going out and messing with the landscape this way, it's a topic.
And certainly with me, it is something about the fact that they have so much money that just bugs me even more.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I'll be honest.
They should be planting trees.
Well, let me ask you, Sarah, and congratulations. You did this story before everybody else.
Thank you.
So we'll give you props there. What do you think about Gretchen Bangert? She's a member of the General Assembly, but she's being term limited out. She's a state rep. She's running for a county council. She claims she's now had 3 meetings with Sam Page, who is the county executive. The last one she recorded without his knowledge, which is legal in the state of Missouri. And she has evidence that Sam Page is offering her a job in county government, hoping that she will not run against Nicole Greer. Sam Page and Nicole Greer, the Olivet, or as a Creve Coeur councilwoman, they have the same fundraiser, so they have some political connections there. So Page would like her out. Bangert says, I'm staying in the race. Is there anything wrong with Sam Page offering Bangert a job to get out of the race?
Yeah, I think there is something wrong with it. I think he's using the county employment roles as if this is like his own personal favors to bestow to get his desired political outcome. And what really bothers me here is this is a bit of a pattern here. We saw him give a job to former Councilwoman Hazel Irby. Seemed like that was a job that was kind of created for her. We saw him give a job to former Councilwoman Rochelle Walton Gray. Now we see like a third case of somebody who could be a council member, and instead he's saying, hey, let me open up a position for you. The call in and of itself wasn't that damning. It was kind of couched in a way like, well, you're an auditor, we could use an auditor. But this pattern, I don't like it. You don't use the taxpayer funding to try to clear the race for your chosen candidate.
Well, in his, this is the outsider, Sam Page, who was going to come in after the insider, Steve Stanger, and everything was going to be transparent and butterflies and roses and all of that. And then we had the assessor's story, in his cul-de-sac. And now these stories, as Sarah pointed out, it's just kind of Machiavellian, in my opinion.
I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
Because he asked politely. He didn't, he wasn't like, hey.
He wasn't going to throw her up against the wall.
Oh, yeah, I'll ruin you politically if you don't do this. And, he asked politely. And I think let's say I had announced, okay, I'm going to take on Ann Wagner, and for some reason,
That's already happened.
No, all right.
That's already
hypothetically, and then, and I said, and there was like, okay, and all right, and then Josh Hawley said, let's leave that seat alone, Alvin. But there's a job. They need some writer at like HUD here in D.C. and it pays $100,000 a year. You want that job? I'd say like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and take my chances running. But I wouldn't feel like anybody was doing anything wrong.
But if you were not the best person for that HUD writing job, there would be something wrong with that. Can we agree with that?
But she's an accountant, so she can account.
Well, the thing is, he did offer a job in the auditor's office, even though he doesn't run the auditor's office. That's weird.
That's a problem.
If they have openings, they're having trouble finding people, and if she is qualified, well, then maybe she would serve St. Louis County better as an auditor in the auditor department.
Well, I thought that the conversation was fine. I mean, I thought he sounded reasonable and was, like Alvin says, he wasn't pushing at her, I'm going to make life miserable if you don't do this. Hey, if you don't want to take it, that's fine. But he does have a kind of a record. That Hazel Irby stuff and Gray was awful. So.
It doesn't bother you that he's rich?
Well, he's an anesthesiologist, so I like anesthesiology. I really do.
Especially when they're administering hours, right?
Well, I've never had the use for one. I hope I never do.
He'll put you to sleep, that's for sure. Wendy, I want to ask you about the earnings tax. It was announced late last week that the city of St. Louis, after losing its appeal in this case that was headed up by local attorney Beavis Schock and his colleague Mark Milton, looks like anybody who didn't live in the city but work remotely during the pandemic is entitled to their 1% earnings tax rebate. So that would include us. We were Donnybrook panelists, those of us who lived in the county, worked from home during the pandemic, lost that 1%. You going to apply for your refund?
No. I'm not. I feel like I benefit from proximity to the city of St. Louis. If that little tiny bit, if that helps at all, that's great. The one thing that I do not understand, and this is the second time in recent weeks or months that the mayor has, after like 2 days before Kara Spencer announces that she's running, we've got this master plan, retail shops, restaurants, sidewalk cafes, da 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 da. In this, she has announced, because of this earnings tax case and the decision, that there's going to be an advisory council. But it has nothing to do. Why not just say, you know what, she has nothing to do with this. This is not her fault. Just say, yeah, okay, we lost this one. We're going to look for other revenue streams. I don't get that.
Well, because you can push off the decision for 6 months. But the fact is, there's no alternative funding unless the residents themselves are going to double their 1%.
But no, it was, well, they'll examine, okay, if there was going to be a personal property tax, increase, how much would it be? How much could we raise? Questions like that need to be answered. I mean, the Charter Commission came back with their first report, and it had some interesting stuff in it. Now, I don't think a lot of it will get done, but at the same time, I like that it is now on paper that we should look at things like eliminating the comptroller's office and things like that. So, yeah, I'm all for this advisory council because they might come up with a suggestion.
But this could have been done years ago. I was on this program saying, hey, this earnings tax is going to lose, guys. They better come up with an alternative, and now they're doing it a day late.
Well, but if I'm, like I say, if I'm in some kind of legal case, I'm not going to do something where a jury or a judge would say see, you knew you were wrong, Alvin, right? So I would wait until they made the ruling.
Well, what do you think, Bill?
It's the sane thing to do, to say we better take a look at other possibilities for revenue. But Wendy, I am with you, and I'm proud of you for saying, hey, I'm not going to ask for my money back. No. And I wouldn't either. I mean, I'm in Forest. Well, Charlie, I'm in Forest Park every single day.
Yeah.
And I love Forest Park, and when I come down here or go into the paper on occasion, I expect the police protection. I expect everything. And my little 1%, I'm happy to throw that.
Wait a minute.
I mean, I don't think I qualify for the Nobel Peace Prize here, but yeah, but I know what you're saying.
Well, the Forest Park is largely maintained by Forest Park Forever.
I'm a member of that too.
I am too. So
let's be real. Let's be real. If this was some sizable amount of money, yeah, I'd be chasing after it too. But it's just not worth it.
How much could the city need this money if it's got $279 million Stan Kroenke dollars and hasn't spent a penny of it yet?
It needs the money. It needs
really?
Yeah.
Does it know how to spend the money?
Yeah,
well, that's a different question.
Bill, what about the guaranteed basic income? Beavis Schock is not cooling his heels. He's now suing the city over its plan that would give 540 people $500 for 18 months.
Well, I remember when Andrew Yang ran for president and was talking about we need a guaranteed income for everybody. And I thought, that's pretty smart. Now, AI has come along, and pretty soon there won't be any truck drivers. There's already, in the media, jobs are very scarce. And I think, we might need some kind of guaranteed income for people. And I think that the cities are the laboratories where this could be worked out. And as I look at, our plan of giving $500 to random families, I'm not sure about that. But I wish the city would be left alone, and other cities as well, to try to figure out if there's some way to do this.
I just, like, this is one of those things where I said, like, you know you're going to get sued, so just announce when you announce it, hey, we're going to try to do this, and this is why I think it would stand up to, you know, a legal challenge. Not saying that the city was caught off guard by this lawsuit, but you should be prepared for this, because my first reaction is, I don't know that you can take this money and just take my 1%, earnings tax, and then just give it to somebody without them doing anything. So I'm not surprised that there's a lawsuit, and I would not be surprised if the city lost.
Yeah, I'm worried that Beavis, as a city resident, I'm worried that Beavis may have a pretty good case here. You know, there is something in the Missouri Constitution that you can't take public money and use it for a private benefit. What could be more of a private benefit than somebody just giving you a guaranteed basic income? I'm no lawyer. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
It's so unfair to the people who have their children in Lutheran and Catholic schools, because to qualify for this, your children have to be in a public or a charter school.
Well, and
what is up with that?
I get that they might have a constitutional issue here and that that's going to help them with the lawsuit, but I will say, as somebody who has my kid in parochial school, if you can afford parochial school, you don't need guaranteed basic income. I would not want to see it.
Yeah, and this is the city as a lab trying to figure out what the whole country might do. I mean, who knows where we're going to be in 10 or 15 years as far as jobs are concerned.
It's possible, but, you know, Bill, people have been saying that since I got out of college in 1982. Oh, we won't need lawyers, we won't need this, computers are going to take over. And yet today we still have 3 million jobs in the United States that haven't been filled.
Well, okay, how about if we found something you had to do for this $500? Like,
yes.
Like, hey, paint the curb in front of your house one time and you get $500. Just throw some little...
Painting the curb.
Well, if curbs are yellow, people don't crash in. That's safety. Believe it or not, I have seen that supposedly if you paint them like a bright color, you don't have as many car accidents. So,
Well, on that topic,
I read that somewhere.
That's good enough for me, Alvin.
What do you think of the plan by the city to spend $315,000 with the Justine Peterson Foundation to administer? I guess it's a plan to help people register their cars, pay their sales tax, pay their insurance, etc. $315,000.
Well, I still, like we had talked about it one time before, and I still think they're going to have a problem with people paying it. Loan or not, they're not going to, people, I just think will renege on the deal. I will say this, Justine Peterson has a program that helped people purchase a car without getting like a third ripped off on these 30% like auto loans. But the person is still responsible for making their car payment. It's not the city, it's the dealership entity, whatever. That to me would kind of, I don't have a problem with that. But just, you're going to give you this money and you have to pay us back. I think too many people would not pay it back.
Yeah, especially when you're giving it to people because they're poor and this is a hardship.
Right.
And then, so if they say, well, I'm still poor and it's still a hardship, I can't pay it back, what do you do then?
Or the ones who can afford it and just decide that they're not going to.
Yeah, true.
Right? I mean,
that's kind of what I'm saying. That some people will like say,
they just don't want to.
What are they going to do? Send the sheriff?
Bothered.
Well, Wendy, what do you think about this latest story? About 4 weeks ago, Fox 2 reported that Wilson Park in Granite City had been hit 6 times this spring with plant thieves, and now a story in STLtoday.com that Tower Grove Park. You go through the park, which is beautiful. Everyone acknowledges that, but there's whole areas, swaths of the park that are empty because thieves have stolen the plants. If we find the thieves, should they be jailed?
I don't know that they should be jailed, but the punishment has to fit the crime. I think they have to plant, they have to pay for, because it is quite clear that now it's too late to replace these plants. So you've got all of this, this beauty that was there that has now been removed. So if they can be found, just make sure that in terms of the punishment that they never try it again. Alvin was on the show this week and people were talking about Westwood Country Club or Meadowbrook Country Club, people taking tulips for their Easter arrangements.
And
I mean,
a text said that, I talked to a lady who took plants out of the park, and she told me that, like, well, I pay taxes.
I pay the taxes. These are mine.
What? Now, if they do catch these people, they don't get to plant anything. What they get to do is shovel manure and pull honeysuckle, and they got to wait till a day like today to get them out there. Okay, next time it's 100 degrees, you get manure duty, okay? We'll see what you steal next time.
Well, I will say, we planted daffodils and tulips on the Skinker exit at 6440, and you could see the spring with the tulips. Someone went around and cut them.
Almighty.
But it happens around the country. You know, it's not just St. Louis. It's there's no commonweal. There's no.
People are awful, and I would personally like to see some public ridicule if we can ever catch these people.
Shame.
Like, yeah, shame, because it is
Make them
shameful.
walk through the streets.
That's cool.
Their photos in the newly revised St. Louis magazine.
I love the sound of that.
Absolutely.
Right. I like it when your
Stockade.
program should be called "People Are Awful." That was a good
like
quote.
that.
You got
People are awful.
Shame. I like that.
Shame.
Thanks, guys. This branding really helps.
Well, on that note, let's go to the old mailbag and see what viewers had to say about last week's stellar program. If St. Louis wants an NBA or NFL team, it needs a multi-billionaire to pony up $10 to $15 billion for a team and stadium. But that's what St. Louis doesn't have. J.C. Johnson of West County, thank you. I like the idea of having administrators driving the school buses. What do administrators do all day? That from Mike Hoey of South County. The prevalence of drunk driving is evidenced by the litter alongside our roadways. Notice all the empty cordial liquor bottles discarded out car windows. That from Rob Roseman of Baldwin. And we heard from Cindy Donnell Foster of Kirkwood, who wrote, I was disturbed to discover trees have been cut down near I-255 and Telegraph for whatever reason. Brings back memories of I-64 into Chesterfield, where CBC cut down many trees before building its new high school campus. Donnybrook is definitely appointment viewing. Thank you, Cindy. You can write us care. Oh, you can listen to the 9 line as well.
Hi, this is Ruth. I'm a little disappointed. No one brought up that we should get a WNBA team. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Ruth. Write us, everybody, at 9PBS, 3655 Olive Street, 63108. We love your emails, and on social media, use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Call the 9 line, 314-512-9094, and listen to us on your favorite podcast source. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you can join us again next week at this time. I'll be out. Alvin will be taking over, so it's going to be a great show. Have a great week.
We'll see.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.